there, I'm author Sarah A. Chrisman, and today I thought it would be fun to do a little, a little roll call of my books. Partly because Christmas is coming, and I thought some people might be looking for ideas for gifts, and also the way the algorithms work, sometimes if you go looking for my books, you'll only see one or two of them, and there are a lot more. So, there's basically three different categories. There's my Tales of Chetzemoka, there are my nonfiction, and there are my anthologies. Now, the Tales of Chetzemoka, which you've probably guessed by now, are very near and dear to my heart. So this is my series of historical fiction about a cycling club, a group of friends, who live in a town that's based on a town, an idealized version of a town where Gabriel and I used to live. Now, in First Wheel in Town, the first book, the town doctor brings the first bicycle to town that anyone's ever seen. And that everyone is sort of scratching their heads over this new contraption that no one's ever seen before. And they all wonder what it is, and they're very suspicious of it. Now, the one person who really embraces the doctor's new fascination with this is the town dressmaker. And those two fall in love, of course. Love Will Find a Wheel is book 2 in the series, and that's when a young man comes to town to start the first bicycle shop. And in the course of things, he meets and falls in love with a ship's captain's daughter. And by the way, all of the Tales of Chetzemoka have recipes in the back for the various foods that appear in the course of the books. Yes, Diana, you're going to help. The rapping at the door is a little bit of a mystery, sort of a suspense. In this one, a phony spiritualist comes to town, and she's trying to defraud the friend of these folks of his fortune. And a cantankerous and no-nonsense nurse McCoy, who's a feisty Appalachian, is having none of this. And so in the course of this story, she has to show up the phony spiritualist for the fraudster that she is. In book 4, we get a little romance between the town school teacher and a ship's captain, and there's a young girl in that who tries to help and winds up being the sort of help we all can do without. A Trip and a Tumble, which Artemis isn't going to let me reach from here, is when the men from this club go up to Canada. One of them is a newspaper reporter on assignment, another one is trying to encourage the town up there to start a cycling club for reasons that are described in the book. And in the course of things, they go to a circus. Now, this circus actually happened. This was an actual visit of Robinson Circus to British Columbia. And so it's based on actual events. But they get involved in a little fictitious scenario which didn't really happen, but it might have. Now, 3 Women a Wheel, and yes, sorry, this is going to let me out. This is where the ladies of the club go on their own little trip, and they go up to the Cascade Mountains to a very primitive spa, which again was actually there. This is Longmire's Mineral Springs, and it was a place that was actually there. And in the course of things, Ethel, awkward Ethel as everyone calls her, finds and adopts a baby saw-whet owl. And you can imagine there's a lot of fun and mayhem that goes on with that. Sparks Press is when the journalist in the group gets fed up with yellow journalism and false news, and he starts his own press. And then A Bumpy Road to Marriage is when awkward Ethel again gets involved with a photographer. Oh, and of course her interfering aunt shows up. So those are the Tales of Chetzemoka. And I'm working on book 9 right now, which is going to be the last book in the series. My nonfiction are, first one is Victorian Secrets, then This Victorian Life. Victorian Secrets is debunking a lot of myths about corsetry, and this Victorian life broadens out and is debunking more general myths of the Victorian era, and there's a lot of micro-histories in these. And then 2020, a private diary from a time when humanity went mad, but despite predictions to the contrary, the world didn't end. This is actually my own real diary from 2020. Again, this is the nonfiction tier. And I've been keeping a diary since I could write. This is the only one I've published. And I did it because I thought that 2020 was a year that a lot of things happened that year. And I thought it was really important to bear witness to what was actually going on in the everyday life of real people. And I think the most interesting to the general public in this is that during that time we took a trip across America looking for a new home. And so we got to see a lot of what was going on throughout the country. And I thought it was really important to bear witness to that. If you've read any other historical diaries, they aren't like reading a novel. They're not a book because life doesn't happen that way. But it is a real diary of the things that really happened. Moving on from those to the anthologies. The anthologies are, these are stories and articles from the 19th century that I found in our antique books and magazines that were actually written in the 19th century, or in the case of the graduation book, just the very early 20th century, some of them. And so these are the writings of the actual Victorians as they saw their world. And of those, Christmas Every Day is Christmas stories, which I think would be wonderful to read aloud within families in the Christmas season. I think they would be great for that. A Rose Commencement is graduation stories. These are specifically stories of young women graduating. So some of them are high school graduations, some of them are university graduations. And I'd originally envisioned this as graduations in general, but when I was looking through our antique books and magazines, most of the stories are about specifically young women graduating. And actually, in terms of high school, there were more young women graduating than young men. Because a lot of the time the young men would quit school to help their fathers on the farm, whereas the young women who had stayed in school that long that they were getting close to graduation, they would stay in even further because they would want to be able to teach. And to do that, they would need their graduation certificate and go on to teaching school. So anyhow, these are graduation stories, which are pretty fun. The Haunted Wheel are ghost stories. 13 of them, of course. And True Ladies and Proper Gentlemen is an etiquette guide. This is etiquette advice from the Victorian era that is still very applicable to modern day. And then the others are poetry. We've got A Christmas Wish for Christmas poetry, Words of Parting for mourning poetry, Bouquet of Victorian Roses, all rose poetry. I adore roses. Wheelman's Joy cycling poetry, and Love's Messenger love poetry. And then Quotations of Quality is my commonplace book. These are quotes and advice that from the 19th century that I think are words to live by. That's a lot. It's a lot of writing. It's been a lot of fun. And it continues to be a lot of fun. I'm still writing. No end to that anytime soon. But I hope you'll bear all these in mind when you are making your Christmas planning or planning for any other occasion. So, thanks for joining me today. Thanks for indulging me in a little blowing my own horn. But I wanted to do it because I think that there's a lot in here that people will really enjoy. And I hope you agree with me. So, I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please give it a nice thumbs up. Remember to tell your friends about my books. Happy reading!